how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And I did not believe for one second I was actually going to have an opportunity to review this knife that's in my hands right now. This is the CJRB frac, and it's one of two new button locks released by CJRB / Artisan Cutlery at the end of 2023. There's 1 day left, and here we are. After the fact, after I have already reviewed so many CJRB button locks this year, I even did my button lock of the year awards. And in that video, in that episode, I had mentioned that I really had wished that at that point in time I had had an opportunity to review this one, because people had been telling me this is actually the best button lock released in 2023 as far as budget button locks are concerned. And yes, even though there is a premium variant of this one, this specific one is highly attainable. And it is what I would consider to be affordable as well, coming in at $69. This one took me by surprise. I was not expecting this to come in the mail. They didn't give me a forewarning or anything. They sent out a box with 2 knives in it and said, "Hey, thank you for reviewing our knives this year. We appreciate all of your feedback. Merry Christmas." Merry Christmas indeed. So thank you to Artisan Cutlery and CJRB for sending these knives my way, because it was a pleasant surprise. They didn't ask for a review, but of course, there was no way I was going to let this one slip through my fingertips. So here we are, guys. This is the CJRB frac, and I am elated that I have the opportunity to talk about it. Let's go over why. First of all, this is not a small knife. This comes in at just shy of 9 inches overall. We're looking at 8.9 inches with just shy of a 4-inch blade. It's about 3.9 to be exact. It is made of steel, and it is milled out steel, and thank goodness, because if it wasn't, it would be on the fat side of things. As it stands, it comes in at 5.4 ounces, which for these dimensions is actually not terrible. We're looking at what I would consider to be a spear point blade. I think that that's fair. It has one deployment option only. That is going to be this really well done deployment hole that flares out from the tang of the blade towards the tip. And that's actually very easy to actuate. Now, you could, of course, make the argument that you could use the button lock to do this. I wouldn't. I just enjoy using the deployment hole. And of course, you can, thumb flick it as well. The blade is AR RPM 9 steel, or if you're a pirate, you could call it RPM 9 steel, which is Artisan Cutlery's proprietary powder metallurgy steel. I actually consider it to be comparable to a good quality 14C. Some might disagree, but that's just been my experience with it. I really like AR RPM 9 steel. I think that they did an overall good job. Now, these being steel handle scales, check out the pocketed milling on the inside. Yeah, that's pretty good. They pocketed and milled out everything that they could, and then they continued the milling on these handle scales. Something that a lot of people don't consider when they're thinking about the cost of a knife is just how much goes into something like this. This is a frag pattern handle scale setup, and that's a lot of extra milling for a knife that comes in at just shy of $70. It's $69. You get this deep carry pocket clip, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but they do, of course, sell their titanium 3D milled variant, which I would actually love to get one of those clips on here and replace that. Just because I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetics behind this clip. But if you don't care about aesthetics, it works perfectly fine. Slides in and out of the jeans, no problem. Now, something else that I am very surprised to see is T8 hardware all around. That's right, T8 hardware on the pivot, T8 hardware on the body screws. And there's not a ton of body screws, guys. There's just 2 on each side. That's it. Button lock feels good. There's no lock stick. Lockout is good. How's the centering? Blade centering is also good. The action is running on bearings and it's extremely fidgety. The balance is very natural. It's got a good counterweight. It's got a good centering spot right there where you'd put your finger. And then, of course, we have this almost sawtooth-esque style of jimping. We have a forward, what I would consider to be a 60-40 finger choil. So you can get a nice choked up grip on this. This is a knife that is big enough to put to work. And if we look at the barrel in the back, that is an oversized barrel. So there is actually plenty of contact there, which does give a little bit of extra confidence when wielding this knife. Personally, I'm a big fan of knives that are balanced. I'm less concerned about a knife's weight and more concerned with its balance. So if you hear me talking about that in my videos, now you know why. I mean, of course, if you're interested in one of these and you haven't picked one up yet, and you're looking for a good budget button lock knife, I can tell you that while I'm not taking back any awards, because that would not be fair, had I had this in my hands before the awards, it would very well be on the contenders list. We had this one on the contenders list before. This is the CJRB Riff, and I love this knife. This is not a small knife, but it looks small in comparison to the Frack. And I got to say, guys, if I could only pick one between these two, I'm taking the Frack. This is fantastic. I love that we have the T8 body screws. I love that we have the oversized barrel on that button lock. And I really love the extra work that went into this milling pattern. I'm very tempted to try to get my hands on the premium version, which is titanium and S90V. But in the meantime, this one is more than adequate. And I think that if you're looking for a budget button lock that is on the bigger side of things, maybe you've got some meaty hands. Yeah, this is definitely one that I could recommend checking out. Next, we have this one. Now, I know what you're going to say. Rollshambo, you have already reviewed the Alt Pyrite. Yes, I have. However, this is a new spec for the Pyrite because your eyes do not deceive you. Those are Ultim handle scales. Ultim. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not a huge fan of the amber colored Ultim. For me, it's just a color thing. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'll tell you what I am a fan of. How light this knife is. This knife is stupidly light. Very, very light. If you like light knives, like maybe you wanted to get your hands on this guy. This is the steel Pyrite. And, you know, this is a knife that a lot of people love. It's a very competent EDC button lock knife. Really, really great for EDC. And some bigger channels even called it evergreen, like it was the bee's knees. And it's a very, very adequate EDC knife. But with these steel handle scales, it does feel a little bit heavy, even with the pocketed milling on the inside. So getting it in Ultim is going to give you the same great action that you expect from the Pyrite, but in a much lighter variant. And if you like the transparent scales, if you like the Ultim scales, this one would be very, very appealing. Now, I've already done a full review on this one, and I will go ahead and link it up in the corner in case you want to watch that. So I'm not going to go into full details on this other than the fact that it's an Alt Pyrite button lock, which is very, very lightweight. And it is kind of cool having the transparency so you can see the inside milling and the just like the skeletal figure of the frame. That's pretty neat. And I definitely think that it's cool. As far as Ultim is concerned, I would actually prefer this in black Ultim, but the amber is going to appeal to a lot of people. And these are still very affordable, coming in at about the $50 to $60 range. I don't think that you can go wrong with this. It's on my wish list. I would love to have one of these in black Ultim. Now, I want to take this moment to recognize something. Now, when I did my initial review on this guy, I had a complaint. And my complaint was that it had pivot latch, which didn't really sit well with me because I could shake it and I could feel the blade moving back and forth and it bothered me. And I asked in that video, I said, hey, let me know if I'm the only one having this issue. And I had a lot of comments, a lot of responses from people saying, hey man, I've got like 3 or 4 of these things and I have absolutely no issue with the detent lash. There we go, detent lash. And so I took it apart because I was like, why am I the only one? So I took it apart, didn't see anything wrong, put it back together, and there was no detent lash whatsoever, which kind of blew me away. And so I started to fidget with it to find out. And what had happened was the pivot had come just a little bit loose. So if you end up with a pyrite that does in fact have detent lash, that means that the blade in a closed position has travel back and forth. Go ahead, tighten up the pivot ever so slightly, and you will probably notice that detent lash goes away. Either way, I'm glad that the issue was resolved, and I think it's cool that we now have another version of this. Maybe I'll do a giveaway on this knife. I have already given away a Buttonlock pyrite in the past. It would be kind of cool to do another one, so let me know if you might be interested in that. But let me know what your thoughts are on these new CJRB Buttonlocks in the comment section down below, and whether or not you're interested in either the frac or in the Ultim Alt Pyrite. As always, if you don't feel like leaving a comment, leave your favorite emoji. And if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, click on one of the videos that pops up next.